Hello, everyone. Welcome to this BrightTALK webinar. My name is Dolf van der Haven, and I will talk today about governance of artificial intelligence. Before I get going with this presentation, if you have any questions, please just start typing while I am presenting. I will get to them at the end, but I know that it takes a while before questions reach me. So if I'm inviting you to ask questions all the way at the end, then I might miss them eventually before closing down this presentation. So again, welcome to this webinar. The agenda today, after an introduction of myself, I will talk in general terms about artificial intelligence, in case you have missed other presentations about artificial intelligence in this series. Then I will introduce governance of IT, specifically around the ISO standards around that subject, and then apply that to artificial intelligence, so that would become governance of artificial intelligence. Then I'll make a step towards how to put this all into practice. However, just as an introduction of myself, this is me, Dolf van der Haven. In my day job, I work as a quality and information security manager at Verizon, which is the large telecommunications company from the US. I'm based in Amsterdam in the Netherlands myself. Next to that job, I am also the co-founder and managing director of a company called Powerful Answers, which is a consultancy in the area of service management, with representatives in the Netherlands, the Czech Republic, and Bulgaria. I am also a member of the ISO committee, the joint technical committee of ISO and IEC, subcommittee 40, which deals with IT service management and the governance of IT. And this committee is, among other things, responsible for the development of the ISO 20000 series of standards and the ISO 38500 series of standards. 20,000 being about service management, 38500 about governance of IT. Then, if I still have time left, I also like to write a lot. If you look me up on LinkedIn, you can find a whole lot of blogs that I've written. And I've also published various books about service management, governance of IT, and psychotherapy, which I'm licensed to do as well. Okay, let's go to artificial intelligence then. Just some basics about AI, just to set the scene. Development of artificial intelligence started sometime in the past century, in the 20th century, and can generally be distinguished in three phases. There is the concept of narrow AI, or artificial narrow intelligence, ANI, which is all the AI that you see today. So these are machines doing something in a smart way. But that something is limited to a specific area that the machines are programmed for to be very good at. So a machine can be very good at playing chess, but is then abysmal at playing Go. But then another artificial intelligence is great at playing Go, but has no clue to play chess, just because it's not been programmed for it and has not developed the artificial intelligence to be good at both. Now, a next phase that is expected by some people is the area of general AI, or artificial general intelligence. This would be a point in the future where machines are equally intelligent as human beings in all areas that you can imagine. I personally don't necessarily believe that this is going to be possible, simply because human intelligence covers much more than just the practical abilities that we are currently teaching machines to do. I mean, we have intelligence in other terms, for instance, emotional intelligence, cultural intelligence, intelligence in our attitudes, which are all to do with things that you can't point your finger on, which are also impossible to program into a machine, just because that's an entirely different perspective. So, I mean, my personal doubts aside, I mean, there are people who believe that general AI is possible, so let's keep that open. What would follow general AI would be something called superintelligence or artificial superintelligence, which is where machines would surpass the intelligence that humans have today by far, and this opens up the scene for machines potentially taking over, ruling the world from humans, which is one of the doom scenarios that people who believe in artificial superintelligence try to present. More practically speaking, there are several applications of artificial intelligence around today, and I just wanted to run through a couple of them with you. Speech recognition is well known from everybody who has a cell phone and yells at Siri or at Google to do something for them, to look something up, or in my household to turn on or off the lights, for instance. That's what is quite widespread today. Natural language processing is close, but is more focused on the written language. So an artificial intelligence interpreting or reading and interpreting texts and also producing intelligible text. Robotic process automation is a step beyond the general automation of processes, which has been around for quite a while. Robotic process automation adds intelligence to it, adds autonomy to the way in which processes are handled by a machine. Intelligent household appliances, well, apart from my intelligent light bulbs, there are various household appliances with a certain level of intelligence. My favorite being my vacuum cleaner, which I've scheduled actually to do the rounds in the house, which can avoid all kinds of obstacles and at the same time keep the floor clean, just as an example. Less popular from my perspective, self-guided weapons systems. The defense industry is not sitting by idly while artificial intelligence develops itself. There are various weapon systems that can intelligently find their targets, aim for it, and supposedly only kill the targets that are supposed to be killed. More appropriately, medical diagnostics. There are various AI systems around that can perform medical diagnostics today, and that are actually sometimes already better than actual doctors at diagnosing an illness, just because they can just quickly go through the medical literature, digest it, and draw their conclusions. So these are just a number of applications that are around in artificial intelligence today. So back to the actual subject of this presentation. I mean, what are we talking about when we talk about governance in the first place? Governance is a term that is one of the most misunderstood concepts, I think, in the industry. So I want to spend some time on explaining what I mean with it. And governance, specifically governance of IT, I see in the context of the ISO 38500 standard. So I will introduce that one first. So 38500 has been first launched in 2008 and revised in 2015. It talks about governance of IT. So it's been developed by the committee that I'm a member of that deals with IT service management and governance of IT, which is a joint ISO and IEC committee. 38500 defines 3 activities and 6 principles for the governance of IT, which I will get to soon enough. it's aimed at the governing body of organizations, for instance, board of directors. So really very high up in the organization. It's not a management level standard. ISO 20000 is more a management standard level. Management level standard. 38500 is higher than that, governing body of the organization. 38500 has actually been incorporated in one way or the other in various more service management aimed frameworks. COBIT has had it for years. ITIL is now explicitly mentioning it in ITIL 4. Verisum, a newer service management framework for enterprise service management, explicitly deals with governance as well. The 38500 series consists of about 7 or 8 standards, some of which are still in development. Apart from the main standard 38500, there are standards about the implementation of governance of IT, presenting a general framework for governance of IT. The committee is looking at assessment methods to assess the effectiveness of governance. There is a standard about how to develop your own principles for governance of IT. And then some applications of governance of IT, specifically governance of data, governance of investments, and now also still in development, governance of artificial intelligence. Now, to say a little bit more about the contents of 38500, it really revolves around 3 main activities. It's about evaluating the use of IT in an organization, and based on that evaluation, providing direction to the organization in the form of strategy and policies and the likes. Once that has been done, then it is about monitoring and how far the organization actually complies with the direction given. Now, these governance activities, these 3 that you see in the triangle in the picture, interact with the management layer. The management layer consists of, for instance, a service management system, the operational processes, or you can say in general the practical implementation of the policy and strategy given by the governing body. The arrows on top indicate that governance itself is influenced by business pressures, by regulatory obligations, by expectations from stakeholders in and outside of the organization, and by business needs in general. And eventually, there is a source of authority given to the governing body. For instance, that source of authority can simply be the shareholders of a commercial company. Now, if you look at the 6 principles, I said 38500 revolves around the 3 activities, so evaluate, direct, and monitor. And there's also 6 principles defined in the standard. So these principles are responsibility. So look at this always in the context of the use of IT. So responsibility deals with who is responsible for the use of IT and what is responsible use of IT. Strategy obviously comes from the governing body strategy on the use of IT. What do we want to achieve with using IT for instance, the services that we provide. Acquisition of IT is an element to do with sourcing. Performance of IT is, of course, important in order to keep the organization running in the most efficient way, and also provides the most efficient services based on IT. Conformance can be conformance to regulatory obligations or legal requirements. And then eventually any organization is ultimately about humans. So human behavior, how humans use IT in practice is also part of the 6 principles of ISO 38500. Now, after this introduction of governance of IT in general, you can ask yourself, how is governance applied to an environment where artificial intelligence is used, either internally in an organization or as part of externally supplied services. Now, that is the subject of a new upcoming standard, ISO 38507, which is being developed at the moment jointly by the ISO committees that deal with the governance of RT and by the committee that is responsible for artificial intelligence standards. So in what follows, I will touch on a number of items from 38507, which again are still on development. So, well, this is my disclaimer. I mean, the final results, which may in fact be published sometime next year, may be different in content from what I'm going to present to you. Okay, 38507 is called Governance Implications of the Use of Artificial Intelligence by Organizations. That's the current official title. So what it does is provide guidance for governing bodies of organizations on the effective, efficient, and acceptable use of artificial intelligence. What it does in the standard is that it provides a framework to understand the implications of the use of artificial intelligence. It also aims at giving governing bodies the tools to evaluate, direct, and monitor. There's the three activities of governance again. The introduction and the use of artificial intelligence. It also wants to assure various stakeholders that obviously if the guidance from the standard is followed, that they can have confidence in the organization's use of artificial intelligence. And it introduces the relevant terminology for the governance of AI. Now, why should the governing body need to know about AI in the first place? Some people say, okay, I mean, artificial intelligence is technology somewhere, give it to IT and they will deal with it. In general, governance of IT is something that deserves more attention just because of this notion that, well, the IT department, wherever it is, will deal with all aspects of IT. This is not true, basically, and specifically for AI, this new standard indicates why. I mean, the strategic use of artificial intelligence can bring significant value to an organization. Value in terms of commercial benefits, for instance, but also value in terms of internal efficiencies and employee and customer satisfaction. The use of artificial intelligence can also bring certain risks to the organization. I mean, it's new technology, it's potentially disruptive, and it can be hard to control if you don't implement sufficient controls in programming AI. And finally, the use of AI systems can bring additional obligations to the organization, such as keeping the output of an AI-driven process under control. So these are three aspects that actually apply to the use of IT in general, but to AI in particular. Okay, so the focus of governance of AI is on two main activities. Assuming that there's an existing governance function in place, specifically governance of IT function, this one may need to be reviewed, if not reinforced, because of the introduction of artificial intelligence. If necessary, those same functions may have to be extended to cover additional requirements that AI may bring with it. AI being, again, a new technology, it needs to be evaluated for the impact on governance of IT. this review and extension is in particular necessary for items of for aspects of governance, the way of decision making and how this is structured and the processes around decision making, governance of data that AI uses. I mean, what data do you want artificial intelligence to use? Which artificial intelligence, in some cases, if it's badly programmed, may abuse as well. The influence of artificial intelligence on the organizational culture and values, and ultimately also the risk framework of the organization can be influenced by artificial intelligence. Now, taking these concepts, I mean, ISO standards are worded in quite abstract terms often, and that applies very much to the governance standards, which for many people are happening quite above their heads. So, I mean, what can you do to make this more practical? As a practical approach of assessing artificial intelligence from a governance perspective, I would say, you need to start with a risk assessment. Risk management itself, again, is often seen as an operational process, but in my opinion, it should exist at all levels in an organization. So it should also exist in a governing body. So the governing body should basically perform that risk assessment based on the application and the nature of artificial intelligence in your organization. How do you use it? How do you use it in the services that you potentially provide to internal or external customers? Based on the result of that risk assessment, you can determine what controls the organization needs. At a governance level, that might mean policies, adjusted policies, or new policies. But also look at principles for the use of AI, which may be the 6 principles from 38500, but may also include other principles. And a very important aspect, I think, that may result from that risk assessment is a look at security. I've done another presentation here about management of artificial intelligence. And in there, the implications of security of AI, again, given that it's new technology, given that it's potentially gets a certain level of autonomy, means that you need to implement very strict security controls around the use of AI. And that's something that, honestly, the governing body should be looking at as well. So once that risk assessment has been done, once additional controls have been identified, the organization can then be directed by the governing body based on these policies, based on the principles and additional controls. And then in the usual way, monitor the effectiveness of these new controls based on what reports to the governing body, and evaluate possible changes that are needed to those controls in time. So this is one step of a practical approach that you can take to control your AI from a governance perspective. This brings me to the end of this presentation. I just wanted to mention the source material for this presentation. There's the 2 standards. 38500 is published. 38507 may be published in 2020. And for people interested in governance of IT in general, I've written a small book about the ISO 38500 series of standards. So this brings me to the end of this presentation. If there's any questions, then please send them on. Keep in mind there's a bit of a delay, so I'll just be silent for a while for questions to be sent to me. One thing that I'm obliged to say, by the way, is that apart from COBIT, ITIL, and Verisum, there's also the BISL framework, BISL framework, that uses 38500 extensively. I see no further questions coming in. Maybe that they come in after I close down this presentation. If so, I will try to answer them if there's a possibility there. And otherwise, feel free to contact me. You can find me on LinkedIn. So thank you for your attendance today or in the future if you watch the recorded version of this presentation. And I wish you all a good rest of your day.